People wonder, people ask, am I present? Am I past?
Hi,
I never
everybody.
left.
Okay, so we're going to continue our
I
little
haven't
study
gone.
on numerology and how
Check the
Elvis used
spelling
numerology to plan his death. He
on
really
the
stressed this in his
stone.
book. He said to Dr. Hinton, he said, I want everyone to understand that numerology plays an important role. It was an important part of my life, and it still is today. And this is how I planned my death. And obviously he gave us reasons the last time I was on. So there's some more information. At first, he said numerology plays an important part in his life today. Numerology plays a life important part in his life all the time. When he meets people, he asks them for their full name, their birth date, and he figures out from the Cairo's book of numbers what their numbers are and if they're compatible with one another. Well, I might as well do my numbers, kind of understand where his numbers come from. But anyway, we will cover that in a little bit. So I'm going to glean from the truth about Elvis Aaron Presley in his own words, first of all. So this book here was written by Elvis Jesse with Dr. Hinton. And so the first thing he said about numerology was that he planned his date around it. All right. So I'm going to go on and I'm going to give you a little more insight on numerology. So he says, my fascination with the idea of the hoax about my death was when Jim Morrison died on July 3rd, 1971. Although I saw no correlation, he died at the age of 27. I was astounded that as famous as he was, the body was just closed up and shipped out. Now, I don't know all the facts concerning his death. I thought it was awfully strange that no autopsy was performed, or so I thought, or just forgotten about. There were a lot of rumors about his death. I noticed he was born on the 8th day, born in 1944. 1 minus 8, and he died in 1971 equals 1 minus 8. All right. Remember my comeback in 1968? 1 plus 9 plus 6 plus 8 equals 24. Obviously, I was no longer 24, so I reversed the age to 42. The next time that number had any relevance was 1977. 1 plus 9 plus 7 plus 7 equals 24, when I would be 42. Numerology can and does play an important part of my life. He did say that in all his movies there was a numerology clue. So I did I could not attach it onto the live video. So I put it on the community board, but I will put it up here on this video because this is recorded and I can add pictures and stuff of this numerology. The example is in Loving You. The year on the gravestone was 1878. 1 plus 8 plus 7 plus 8 equals 24. And if you look at those movies, my hero James Dean died at the age of 24. But I was on top of the world then, and I wanted to live. Now there was other things about numerology that he had done. Let me see if there's other ones. I'm going to actually go into this book, the Elvis Files, Well, Gail Brewer Giorgio actually goes into the numerology and the numbers of his name and all that kind of thing. So I'm going to go over that. Now, I think I had attached onto the community chat room or whatever that when you want to call that message board a numerology paper that Linda Hood Sigmund did, discussing the dates and the changes of the names on the gravestones. So I'm going to go into that a little bit. All right. So it says like numerology, he used Cheiro's book of numbers. Now I could go on and on and on about this, but I'm just going to talk about it. Said the number 7 is an illustration throughout the Bible as well as other sacred books. 7 always relates to God force, which was quite interesting. So the Bible speaks of the 7 generations of David to birth of Christ, the 7 days of Genesis creation. There were 7 heavens, 7 thrones, 7 seals, 7 churches, and the 7th day. So 7 represents God force. Okay. So I think the reason why she's starting off with this is because it'll make sense when she does her numerology plans here. You'll figure it out, I guess. So Revelation speaks of the 7 spirits of God sent forth into the earth, while Ezekiel speaks of the 7 angels of the Lord and go to and fro the whole earth. A reference perhaps to the influences of the 7 created planets that radiate through the earth. Egyptian religion refers to the 7 spirits, as do other religions ranging from Hindu to Greek to Hebrew. All state that the number 7 is the God force. The number 7 is the only number capable of dividing the number of eternity. The 7 days of the week have been the outcome of the influence of the 7 creative planets. To further understand the mystery of numbers, read Cheiro's Book of Numbers or Numerology in the Divine Triangle, the latter by Faith Javan and Dusty Bunker. Cheiro's Book of Numbers was by, I think, Count Lewis Harmon, I think she said, but that's okay. For this file, however, I will briefly zero in on Elvis's belief in numerology. According to the Javan Bunker book, Elvis's life lesson number was 9, and the number of universal love and humanity. And Cheiro's, his name numbers equal 9. Using Elvis Presley, they were both 9s. His compound number could change depending on whether he used Aron or Aaron. So by adding a second A, Elvis could have changed the vibrations of his numbers as well as his soul number. However, because this was a rather complicated and personal matter, it is dealt with here only lightly, only pointing out that it was an intense interest of Elvis. So August 16, 1977, if you took 8 and you had 16, add 8 plus 1 plus 6 plus 1 plus 9 plus 7 plus 7, it equals 2001. The title of Elvis's theme song, 2001. And Tina G. of Defiance, Ohio wrote, the number 16 is pictured by the tower struck by lightning, from which a man is falling with a crown on his head. It is also called the shattered citadel. It gives warnings of some strange fatality awaiting one, also defeats one's plans. If it appears as a compound number relating to the future, it should be carefully noted and plans made in advance with an endeavor to avert its fatalistic tendency. So Tina further writes, The description seems quite appropriate, whether he's dead or alive, don't you think? One more thing that I found interesting was the explanation of the number 20, the name number of Priscilla Presley. Priscilla states in her book that at the funeral she placed a bracelet on Elvis' wrist depicting a mother and child and their hands clasped. This number is called the awakening, also the judgment. It is symbolized by the figure of a winged angel sounding a trumpet, while from below the man, woman, and child are rising from the tomb with their hands clasped in prayer. So Tina wondered if there was any clue to any of this, especially since one of Elvis's favorite books was Cheiro's, and especially since he supposedly died, in parentheses, on August 16th. So there is one thing that I want to share with you, Tina added, regarding Cheiro's. I figured up the number of Elvis's name as it was spelled on the grave, just to see how it would come out. The compound number becomes 25. Comes to 25, adds a 25. There is an explanation of that number. This number denotes strength gained through experience and benefits obtained through observation of people and things. It is not deemed exactly lucky, as its success is given through strife and trials in the earlier life. It is favorable only when it appears in regards to the future, which I found was interesting when I looked at Kyle's book of numbers and I looked up my birthday, August 25th, and the birth number is 7. So 25 is my birthday. So that was the explanation of that number. Interesting how strength is gained through experience. It's always true. I've always learned from experience. And through observation of people and things, I've learned from people, watching people, and that makes me a little more successful later on in life because I can do that. So I found that kind of interesting how that fit in with me and my number 7 on Cairo's book. If I were to go to regular numerology.com, it comes out to be, because they figure in your birth year, it comes out to be a 5. But the characteristics are very much the same. Independent, love to travel, all that kind of thing. But anyway, I guess I use a different numerology book for that site. Yeah. Anyway, numerology things that were interesting. So I'm gonna go on to the next section over here. I'm not gonna read this whole chapter because it doesn't all pertain to the date of his death and how he planned it. But these things kind of help you a little bit understand a little bit more. Excuse me, I have an allergy, so just bear with me. A little bit more. Okay, so no one to date understands the date chosen, name on tombstone, etc., unless you are a student of numerology, and the meanings of all the hidden remain hidden. However, it becomes very simple when instructions are given on how to interpret the questions that seem unable to be answered. Excuse me. For starters, Elvis chose August 16, 1977 because numerology is based on the Bible and the ancient Hebrew letters and number vibrations of each, especially 16. 1 plus 6 equals 7. So Aaron. Each letter has its own number. And I will put a picture of that on here so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so each letter has its own number available. Okay, so if he add Aaron together, it equals 7. Aaron falsified on purpose. The real name, Aron, equaled 6. All right. So if he did the Aaron spelled out, it equaled 16, which is the same as the tombstone. So basically, he kind of went a little further. Name and date to coincide with 8/16/1977. If you put 8 plus 7 plus 6, and then I'm assuming that's add 21 or times 21. I can't figure out what they do, but anyway, it equals 21. If you add 8/16/1977 together, it equals 21. And in the end, I guess 2001 is the theme song he used. So the number is called the compound number, and its meaning is this number is symbolized by a picture of the universe, and it is also called the crown of the Magi. It is the number of advancement, honors, elevation in life, and general success. It means victory after a long fight, for the crown of the Magi is only gained after long initiation and tests of determination. It is the fortunate number of promise if it appears in any connection with future events. So Elvis rearranged the middle name on purpose. This is to indicate where he is living. So basically, he's not dead, he's living. And that's what he said to Linda Hood Sigmund. And everybody who read his press release was the extra A in his name meant alive, meant he's living. He's living. And he did something with Jesse's name as well. So when Jesse's tombstone, you see an I added, it made the numbers equal each other, which we will go over that in a little bit. And so, but also the I could mean I am Jesse. It could mean he never said it, but that's what I say. But anyway, he used the I, the numerical, to make the name equal Elvis Aron with 2 A's, Presley, you see. So you had to do it to change the numerical numbers. But anyway, so he rearranged his middle name on purpose. So his new name, John Burroughs, has vibrations of number 1, which is better than his original birth date, because he was born on the 8th. And when you're born in the number 8 period of the zodiac, he needed to decrease the vibrations in order to have a happier life. And so this stuff is like hard to understand. It's over my head, but I'm just reading it. If anyone knows more about numerology than me, they may put it in the comments. All right. So number 8, people suffer the greatest losses, the greater than any other numbers. His manager was also a number 8, and when Elvis realized that his dissolved the business association. Number 8 people are generally misunderstood. They are very lonely people at heart, and because of this develops fear of mistrust and increase the potential of being used, and that is true. He doesn't trust people well anymore. He gets used a lot. He's always lonely at heart. 8 usually is given to a number 8 for greed, lust, and advancement of self-gain. One of the biggest reasons Elvis chose his life in exile. He wanted to study, meditate, educate his soul, learn, travel, and regain losses financially. Elvis's love is music. I predict he will return to the people and the public eye, but in a different way. This is the girl talking, not me. He sings and feels from his soul, and the people will see him in a different light when he returns. His music will be better because he will become a better human being, has educated his soul, and his music will reflect this. He needs to return this troubled time and before the years of peace, because the people will listen and learn, and he is a teacher in his own right and has a lot of work to do. So more clues of his age of leaving. 42 plus 4 plus 2 equals 6. The year 1977 equals 24. His correct name, Elvis, was 9. Aron equaled 6. Presley equaled 9. And if you add 9, 6, and 9 together, they equal 24. His desire to be accepted as kind, loving, caring individual will be realized and respected. He gave a lot to many, and it shall be returned. He could have a big impact on the youth of today in relationship to drug problems, to get rid of the bad music that prompts suicide and drugs, and I hope that he will return to this world. But he never came out because he's not allowed to. Anyway. Was an interesting tidbit here, but we'll discuss this later. So these are his profiles for his numerology profile done by Widening Horizons Incorporated. Elvis Presley had told of such traits as devotion to people, innate love of mankind, loving and giving, a philanthropist and humanitarian, great compassion, moodiness when upset, intensive feelings, inspiration to others, express himself through music, ability to organize, analyze, supervise, which makes for a fine leader, demanding of himself, seeking of high standards, and uncomfortable dealing with finances. And those definitely do fit Elvis in a lot of ways, right? So basically, that was all it was about numerology. It was all about the reason why the name on the stone was changed from his original documents. But he also told his dad, please spell my name in the Hebrew spelling from now on. And the reason why is because he knew the numbers. He knew about the numbers. And he wanted the numbers to be, ideal, All right. So as far as that adding up Jesse's name, I'm going to pull up that paper so I can look at it. And we can try to figure it out. So Jesse Garin Presley had the same birth date as Elvis. He was his twin, and he was stillborn. So that we know for sure. All right. And the records say that he was stillborn. Anybody who says that he was not stillborn, they're talking out of their hat and don't know what they're talking about. And they're lying to you if you are in those groups that believe that there's other brothers. Jesse was the only brother, and he was stillborn. And the records say that too. They said how many children were born. 1. Did it survive? 0. Right on the birth record. Okay, now where is it? All right. So when you see this picture, it's going to be on the screen, so you'll see it. Okay. So what Linda Hood Sigmund did was that she did the numbers. So the way Jesse wrote his name, his birth name originally on his birth certificate is Jesse, and each letter has its own number assigned. So if they add that together, it equals 17. So 1 plus 7 equals 8. All right. Now Elvis's first name equaled 18, which 1 plus 8 is 9. So it was a 9. Elvis Presley, the Presley last name, equaled 27. 2 plus 7 equaled 9. All right. So what he did was He wanted Jesse's first name to equal 9, like Elvis did. So he added one letter, which is I, onto it. So they both would be equal. They would both be a 9 and a 9. Both of them would be. Okay, because Presley equaled 9. So I'll show this up here on the screen somewhere. All right. So you'll see that. So you get what I mean. So when they put the stone in, a marker, it's not really where Jesse's buried. He's buried in Mississippi in family plot in like a little tiny, tiny stone marking where he is. The family was so poor they couldn't afford a stone. So they buried him with family in a family plot with cousins and uncles and all that kind of thing. But they put a little tiny marker there to place, put him, all right, to remind them where he is. All right, so the change of Aron, he wanted, I guess, what they call a number that equaled God, like the God. What did she call it? Godlike or whatever. There. So he added an A because the original Aron spelling, Aron, equaled 15, which 5 plus 1 equals 6. So if he added an extra A, then it would equal 16, which is 1 plus 6 equals 7, which is the crown, which represents what we had discussed here, the crown of whatever, Magi. All right. And Elvis was a very, very, very religious man. He still is today, very spiritual man. So to have that number equaling his middle name equals that number, it makes sense. All right, it makes sense. All right. And she did some other numerology here, which I thought was kind of interesting, but it said like on the name of his street, Elvis Presley Boulevard, they all equal 9. You can't see it, but I'll put it up here. They all equal 9, which is kind of cool. And Elvis Presley equals 9 as well. After they do all the adding, and then they take the final number and they add them together. So that is how he planned his death, using numerology. Now people are going to be like, you're out of your mind, you are crazy, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, if Jesse Elvis here told us in here that numerology was used, and then Brewer Giorgio's book came out before this book did, and she said numerology was used, then that's kind of interesting how they both are matching each other as far as numerology is concerned. Elvis was into all kinds of religions. He was into the occult stuff a lot. And yes, and she also said in her book here, and Priscilla said this, that when Priscilla entered his bedroom after she arrived to the mansion, she noticed that the books he usually kept on his nightstand were gone. Elvis never left anywhere without 2 books. And those 2 major books was his Holy Bible and the Cheiro's Book of Numbers. All right. He might have taken a couple other books with him too, but those are the 2 main books he never left the house without. And he still had them today. And I'm going to read one letter from here, which I found was interesting. This is a letter not written by Elvis, but written by I believe it was Byrne. Okay, let me double check here. Yes, Byrne. Who Jesse used aliases for most of the people in this book. Dr. Hinton was the only one that identified himself, and then Linda Hood Sigmund identified herself as Shuma in the book on her website. Okay, so I'm going to read Byrne. I don't know his real name. She said the author had asked me if I would submit my story to his book. I did not hesitate for a moment, but I first checked with Jesse, and since there is truly only a handful of people he considers true bona fide loyal friends with no need of publicity, he trusted me to write it as it was that day in November of 1988. Okay. In fact, it was the day after Thanksgiving. I was driving to a city which I will not name. I passed through a small town, it was a farm town, and was nearly to the highway when I noticed that two elderly couple, probably in their 70s in age, standing outside what appeared to be a pickup truck, a blue one, that seemed to be disabled. I pulled over directly in front of the truck to see if I could be of assistance. When I got out and passed the cab of the truck, I noticed another person, younger, but also with a full head of white hair. I remember the couple seemed awfully nervous when I approached, asking if I could be of assistance. They thanked me but said that they had a tow truck coming. When I walked away past the cab of the truck, the man still sitting in the middle of the truck, wearing a denim jacket, blue jeans, and I think boots, but I'm not sure. But his feet were propped up on the dash, and he was wearing sunglasses. Out of curiosity, I decided to knock on the window. He leaned over, rolled down the window, and I said, "Hey, how you doing?" He answered, "I'll be a lot better when this damn truck is fixed. I can't stand the cold weather." I noticed his thick southern accent and said, You sound like you're from the South." He said, "Yeah, see ya," and rolled up the window. I became very curious, and as I drove off, I went down the street, just pulled south and pulled over, and watched as the tow truck seemed to repair something under the hood. The truck was repaired within 10 minutes and drove south past me, and then west for several miles. My curiosity got the best of me, and I followed this truck until it pulled into an old farmhouse on the left side of a dirt road. I kept on going, but turned around in another driveway. The nearest house was probably a quarter mile and looked abandoned. I was going back and would not be satisfied until I was able to speak with this southern gentleman. I knocked and get the impression the elderly couple, who both came to the door, were going to ask me to leave. Out of another room, right over their shoulders, came the southern gentleman, dressed in white, a very warm-looking terry cloth robe, and he was wearing slippers. All within 5 minutes. Remember, it was only late afternoon, on a gray winter afternoon. I asked the couple to allow me in. He asked the couple, to allow me in. I sat in the chair directly across from him and noticed he was wearing his sunglasses. The first words out of his mouth were, "You know who I am?" My heart was beating a million times a second. I didn't know who he was, but I said, "You sound like someone familiar, and you kind of look like a person I'm thinking of." I can honestly say that at this time I didn't know if I would be allowed to leave alive. He leaned forward in his chair and asked me, "Who do you think I am?" "Well, you could pass for Elvis." In his most serious tone, he said, "Elvis is dead." He then asked me my name and where I was from. After I told him, he told me that Elvis had an identical brother who died at birth, and asked if I knew this. I hesitated and said I think I had heard that at one time, but I didn't know his name. He told me Jesse. Then he asked my date of birth, and he went into another room and returned with the book, sat down, pushed up his sunglasses, and then removed them altogether. He um paid through the book that I found out was the Book of Numbers. There was another name that preceded this book of Numbers, but I don't remember. That's the Cheiro's Book of Numbers. And I stayed another half hour listening to him quote things from this book. Before I left, I stood at the door. I turned and asked him, "Are you him?" He said, "Elvis is dead. But I could if but would I please not tell anyone what happened this day?" I asked him if I might be able to visit again. I asked him if I should phone. He said there's no phone. I found out later differently. Not wanting to make a pest of myself, I waited a week before going back. When I did, the place was vacant. After that, I guess I did not keep my promise, but I did tell someone who told someone else, and I was interviewed on the air by a DJ from Severnport, Louisiana, but I did not reveal everything I talked about that day. I felt bad that he would arbitrarily move away without saying a word. I thought if I had found a friend, at least on my part. I remember thinking about this incident every day, wondering, was it him? I was not sure until late one night I received a phone call a year from the day. Exactly a year from the day. Okay. I am not naive or gullible, but after 20 minutes on the phone with this man, no one was gonna convince me that I was talking to the man most people thought was dead. Thus started a friendship that thrives today, regardless of what people think of me. The book you are about to read tells you the truth, and truly believe that most people will believe after reading what I already know. All of us are his friends, friends that he knew he would need when his closest comrades began to disappear. It kind of underlined disappear. I'm not quite sure. All right. They, as I am, are all compatible in his numerology chart, which he truly believes in. Believe what you may, we are his friends and will continue to be his loyal friends until he passes away. Note, I may have left out a few things and skipped around, but I didn't keep a diary, so that's all from memory. Thanks, Doctor. All right. So, he used the Cairo's Book of Numbers. Everybody he meets, he used the Kairos Book of Numbers. He did it with Linda, he did it with Dr. Hinton, he did it with Vern, he did it with anybody that he meets. He does the Kairos Book of Numbers. It's a compatible thing. It's something that he does. I don't know, maybe it tells him about somebody, how they are, as far as character or whatever. So, it's not impossible for Elvis to use numerology to plan his death. Okay, so the next video, I'm not sure what will happen, but we'll see. But if you find this stuff interesting and you find it of value, subscribe to the channel, hit the notifications button for the newest videos that come out, like and favorite this video, and share it amongst anybody you want. And you guys have a great day, and we'll talk later. Bye!